so after NYU, how did you get started in the music career?
Oh, well, I mean, it's such a funny thing how I ended up getting started. I actually got a professional acting gig in college, and talk about energy and synchronicities. Like, I was like at NYU, I was a junior in college, and I was very adamant about not auditioning. Like, I was like graduating, I was getting my degree, we were in college, we were doing it, not gonna get distracted, And they just brought some casting directors in, and I was signed up for this one room, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. I'm gonna ask if I can move to this room, and I don't know what made me do that, but I just did it, and they let me do it, and I ended up randomly getting a job from that. So it was like I walked in, and it happened to be the casting director of Mamma Mia, and then
for Mamma Mia on Broadway, okay.
Yeah, Mamma Mia, and so I and I was so green, like so naive, like had no idea what was going on, And so, I had this hilarious, awesome summer stock job, making nothing, and having all these like extra jobs to do. And Mamma Mia called, and I was like, how did Mamma Mia get my number? And they were like, Carrie, wow. And I was like, do I go in for this? And they were like, yes, you absolutely go in for this. And so I ended up going in a series of auditions, and next thing I knew, I was on tour with that show, and next thing I knew, I was playing lead, and it was just like a very, very fast kind of a thing. And I toured with that show for a while, a year and a half, and then they moved me to New York, and right after that, I got Wicked. So I did Wicked for a while, and then as I was on tour with Wicked, I was a standby, and I had all this time on my hands, which I had never had, and it was the first time that I wasn't singing every day in front of people. And that was the craziest feeling I've ever had, because I was so used to being in front of people, and I guess part of my identity had a lot to do with the way people saw me, or I had just grown up that way. I'd never not had that, and not that I guess I did lean on it, but I didn't know that I did, and it wasn't like say all these things. It was just more of
like a mirror for you.
Yeah, it was sort of a mirror, and that was strangely, there were 6 weeks at a time where I wasn't on stage, and I had never experienced that, and it was the best blessing in the world, because I would not, I know for a fact I would not have started writing music in this way if I didn't have that kind of time, and I didn't have that kind of struggle of like, who am I without this thing that I do, and I sort of had to kind of adjust to that and recreate myself, and it was almost on accident that I started writing music. It was just a way to cope, and one of the first songs I wrote was called In Your Own Grace, and I wrote it in a couple of hours, and it was actually me just alone in a dark theater with no intention of anybody necessarily hearing it, and I was like, this is how I'm feeling right now. And then slowly but surely I started going up to some of the swings in the cast, being like, I think I wrote a song, and they'd be like, let's hear it, and I was like, okay.
And that was the first song you had written?
Well, I had written a couple before then, but it was I remember the first time it really was the swings, and because we were all backstage hanging out, and they would always be like, play, play, play. They were so encouraging and so supportive, and I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never really written songs. I wrote 2 bad songs in high school, and so it was just so fun to kind of, I don't know, it was just all discovery at every moment. It was all discovery. So anyway, I started writing, and then I like doing things that I'm scared of, so that I hopefully become fearless one day. I still have a lot of things that I'm scared of, but I tend to sort of gravitate towards the harder road, the challenge. And so when I got back to New York, I played this really, really, really small show at Googie's Lounge, and I only invited my family and like 3 friends, and I was like, guys, this is gonna be so bad. Don't judge me, like I just need to play guitar in front of you, like it's not a big deal. And so I did, and like, it was like, nobody there on purpose. I was like, don't tell. And then eventually I like just booked a huge show at Joe's Pub, and it was sold out days before. It was lines around the block, like, because I'd never done that, and everyone was like, where's your solo show, what are you doing, like make an album, and it never felt right, because I would have been doing all this other material. And then as I started writing and doing that more, that was sort of the beginning of the rest.
Is it that gave you confidence when you were writing? Did you feel more connected to who you were and what your voice was? Or, I mean, what was it about songwriting that really clicked with you?
Well, I think that there was always this element of, I never knew, I got some of these really big jobs, And for some reason, like, it's not that I was unhappy, but I was like, wait, there's something else. And I didn't know what it was because I hadn't been writing. But I had always had that feeling when I was working in New York, when I was on tour, and I didn't know what it was because it was new, you know? And so I always had that feeling, and then once I started to do these shows, and I mean, I remember I sung in front of thousands of people, like, on national TV, like, I mean, for years. And the scariest moment of my life was walking onto that stage at Joe's Pub, hands down, bar none. That was the most afraid I've ever been. I almost was like, and I'm out. You know, and it was just such a weird thing about being myself. And, you know, I mentioned this at the show the other night, but I used to have a huge fear of speaking in public. You know, like, of being myself. When I was in class and a kid, I would never raise my hand. I would always go up to the teacher after class. Like, it was just a very weird thing that Carrie as a performer was a different person than Carrie as, you know, just a human being. Yeah. And so I think that once that started to develop, as I was, like, being myself on stage, this sort of power came up in me that I didn't ever know. You know, I didn't ever... I was always confident, but it was like a different kind of...
Yeah.
I mean, we're all insecure about certain things, but, you know, I always had this sort of, I guess, confidence about that part of my life. And then as I got to know myself on that level, I also realized that was where I would really make a difference. You know, and it's awesome acting. I love acting. And I think there's a lot of value in that, and I learned a lot. And I think that, you know, playing someone else was a very valuable, you know, education that I got, and then it started to pave the way for me defining who I am, which was a challenge. I mean, when you spend a lifetime being somebody else, it's like, it takes a minute.